Hey everyone, it's Michael GoosebumpsFan. I hope you're doing well today. I'm trying to keep my voice a little lower because my wife is actually working in the next room, so I don't want to bother her too much. But I finally have a review for you. But I wanted to apologize. I was hoping to have this read and reviewed at least by Monday or Tuesday of this week. You know, today is Thursday as I review this and record it, whatever. And it's been kind of a busy weekend. My wife's birthday was this past weekend, so we spent a lot of a 4-day weekend off from work, just enjoying each other, spending time around each other, just going on small adventures around in our neighborhoods and stuff. Pretty awesome. Pretty fun time. Had a really good time. I think she had a good birthday, I believe. Spoiled rotten. Anyway, I've been kind of sick with allergies mixed with everything. Of course, my wife introduced me to NyQuil, and NyQuil helped me tremendously with a lot of my allergy issues. If you have severe allergies mixed with chronic sinus like how I do, that's the way to go, man. I've never taken NyQuil in my life, and I will forever use that as my allergy drug because it helps a lot. Anyway, I've been reading this book for like 2 weeks, and I have enjoyed it the entire time I've been reading it. It's just I forget details and stuff. So one thing I had to do this time around was take some notes from the beginning of the book to help me out. I might have to start doing this with every book. I notice more and more that I'm forgetting details that I find fun enough to bother mentioning in reviews, and I typically forget those things. So I want to start taking a little bit of notes here. There's a lot of detailing to the beginning of this book. There's a lot of stuff that happens in like the first 20 pages of this 137 page long book. So if it seems at one point when I'm giving you the premise of the book that I'm spoiling too much, I want to let you know that's not the case. Forgive me for that. Also, please forgive me in the meantime for taking so long to get around to making a video. I've been trying to get around to something. There's been a couple of things that have happened. I'm going to make a Goosebumps news video after this video, so hopefully you'll check that out as well if you want to. Anyway, the book for right now that I'm reviewing, of course, from the title, says Goosebumps number 13, HorrorLand, When the Ghost Dog Howls. Or Goosebumps HorrorLand number 13. I like this cover. I think Brandon Dorman did a really good job with that cover. This was a really fun read, dude. I had a good time with this. I thought it was very fun, very good about balancing humor with kind of the horror aspect, but it's not scary horror. It's just kind of the horror aspect to the story. There's some really cool aspects in here that I really enjoyed. Now, of course, I just finished recently the actual first arc, if you will. This is the beginning of the second arc, the Jonathan Chiller arc. And the last arc 1 of the HorrorLand series, out of these like 19 or 20 books, is essentially mostly focused on Horrorland and a bunch of kids getting sucked into Horrorland. Each book you have more kids end up getting introduced into Horrorland in a crazy kidnapping situation. And the previous book that ended that arc was The Streets of Panic Park, which was fantastic. I love that book so much. One of my favorites in the whole Horrorland series. It was so good. I just raved and raved about how good that book was. One of my favorites out of the whole era of Goosebumps, of Horrorland. And I will say this. I think that When the Ghost Dog Howls is also one of the best out of that whole series, out of that whole era. It's really fun. It's really cool. It's not scary like Creep from the Deep or Revenge of the Living Dummy, which isn't too scary but has some cool elements in there with the horror museum thing that one neighbor has. I really dug this book. I think it has a lot of a kind of an urban legend thing to it, and it's kind of cool how it has like the Scottish thing going for it, and I'll get more into that as I do my little note reading. To kind of start off the review, basically the story starts in Horrorland. The main character, unlike in the previous books where you had 100-page long stories and then like 40 pages focused on the kids from that story getting into Horrorland, being stuck around other kids like Carly Beth and Sabrina from the Haunted Mask story, instead of doing something like that, this book started off on a different note. The main character and his cousin Marnie are actually inside of Horrorland for like a summer vacation thing with the main character's parents. They start off in the horror haunted theater, which I thought was cool because I like the haunted theater. I thought that was a cool place to begin this book at. And they're going to watch a clown show. That's apparently the way it's supposed to go. And I'm going to start looking at my notes. If I'm not making eye contact with you, that's the reason why. Murder the Clown is in this book, at the beginning of the book. Murder the Clown, one of my favorite Goosebumps people from, for example, if you've read Nightmare on Clown Street, that was not the best book. I really don't like that one all that much. It's one of my most negatively received reviews here on my channel. It's one of the first I ever did, but it's one of the most negatively received. People do not like my opinions on that book. But anyway, so Murder the Clown's in here. I love Murder the Clown. I thought it was a really cool thing to have in here. Of course, he still has the axe in his forehead and everything else, so that was cool to see him. And he basically takes the two main kids, the main character, I still don't remember his name, I think it's Andy or something, like from Toy Story. Andy and his cousin Marnie, who I can't stand, by the way. I think Marnie just is an awful, awful character. people hate Kermit from the Monster Blood series. I think Marnie is worse than Kermit. Kermit is supposed to be written to be obnoxious. Marnie is just plain obnoxious. She's not meaningfully, whatever. They didn't mean for her to be obnoxious, but she is. She just pisses me off the more the book goes on. Anyway, the two main leads get taken up onto the stage to dress up like clowns and be part of the clown show itself as volunteers. And it turns out it does not go well. The clowns start pulling themselves apart, pulling their heads off and stuff. Their own heads, not the main character and Marnie's heads, but pulling off their own heads and tossing them around like almost like a juggling act, that kind of thing. It was really weird, really creepy. They had some cool music and stuff playing. And then the zombies show up. Yes. Then zombies show up, and all the clowns on the stage run away, and Andy and Marnie are kind of stuck. Murder the Clown's kind of stuck with them. The audience members, when they look out into the audience from the stage, start seeing a lot of, I guess, zombies that were in the audience. I don't know. Those things started attacking audience members, so people got scared a lot. Everybody starts trying to run away. And then it's revealed to be a joke. The whole time, it was a joke. It was part of the clown show. Very short clown show. Very short-lived. Literally. But, still got my cough from my allergies. Still have a cough. And a little bit of sniffing. Not too bad. Not too bad. Not as bad as the vampire breath reviews, but still. So, they go ahead and they're leaving after this whole thing is revealed to be a joke. Where am I at in my notes? Oh, when they go out the door to leave the stage, they actually walk into Jonathan Chiller's store. Now, I've reviewed a couple of these books from the second arc, like Slappy New Year, for example, which is a really great one. I've reviewed some of these books from this HorrorLand era in the Arc 2 era. Not all of them. I've done Weirdo Halloween and Slappy New Year. I think that's about it, and this is the beginning of the new arc for me. I read some of these books out of order, didn't really think it was a smart idea, but I did it anyway. And here we are. So they go into a place called, it's Jonathan Chiller's store, and he has a bunch of objects and stuff that may or may not be cursed and have, kind of like with Slappy, you know, kind of have different things about them that may or may not be dangerous, maybe cursed, whatever. And one of the things that catches the kid's eyes is a tooth. Andy, the main character, picks it up. I think his name is Andy. Pretty sure it's Andy. I think I remember reading the name Andy. Anyway, doesn't matter. What's his name? Picks up a tooth that he thinks looks pretty cool. And Jonathan Chiller, the very odd, in my head, looks like Benjamin Franklin type of guy. Wears the old-fashioned clothing and everything else, very Puritan-like. Wears glasses, that kind of stuff. Kind of an older fella, bald on the top of his head. Again, Ben Franklin is what I think of. The pictures that I always had in elementary school is what I think of Ben Franklin. And Jonathan Chiller now. So, there you go. It'd be cool if that was a plot twist, that he's magically one of the founding fathers or something. Even though he's not a founding father, but you know what I mean. Was Benjamin Franklin a founding father? I don't know. I think he was. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It matters, but it doesn't matter. Anyway, Jonathan Chiller begins to tell them the legend, the urban legend about this tooth and what it is. Pretty big tooth, too. It looks like it came out of a pretty big dog. It turns out that this is a 300-year-old tooth that is from Scotland, like I said. And the urban legend says that it's from a massive dog that was possibly causing evil all over the town, bad luck, whatever you want to call it. And supposedly the only way the town could stop it is hiring a sorcerer. Kind of like the Pied Piper story a little bit, but not really. It reminds me a lot of that. They hire the sorcerer to get rid of the dog. So he puts a curse on the dog and tries to attack it. One of the teeth inside of this dog actually get affected. It falls out. And the dog, you would think, would just go ahead and attack him anyway, but it does not. It actually gets frightened by that tooth falling out of its head, and it turns around and runs away. Now the town gets all excited. They try to help out the sorcerer by giving him like the most beautiful house and everything on the top of the hill. One of the best views in the whole village and whatnot. It was a village 300 years ago. And one day, it turns out that they realize the tooth can grant wishes. Yes, the tooth can also grant wishes. Now I know this sounds like a lot of information to give you so far. I know it does. Seems like I'm telling you the whole book. I promise you I'm not. This book has so much more happening in it. It's a really solid book with a lot of stuff happening. This is literally all in the first 20 pages or so. So, it ain't like 50 pages of the book, like a third of the book. I'm not telling you all that. I'm just telling you what... There's a lot of stuff happening at the beginning of this, which kind of surprised me. You don't really get a whole lot of lore building in Goosebumps with urban legend type stuff. You do with like the mud monsters from You Can't Scare Me. You do a little bit with Ghost Camp. You know, that's a lot of that book is about the lore of the Ghost Camp. Not so much usually. So when I get that as an urban legend fan, that appeals to me. So I really dig this. Not that this is a scary urban legend type of book the way I think Ghost Camp and You Can't Scare Me are. it's just cool to have one that's more lore focused. I like when R.L. Stine does that. I know he's kind of like me when it comes to being a writer, that I don't like to write sequels to stuff that I do, even if it's just short story stuff, just because there's so many details I have to keep up with. I don't like that. I don't like keeping up with character details. I like having my characters about as bland as you possibly can, with a little bit of humor sprinkled in there if I can, because I don't like to have to swamp myself in detailing all the time and notes and everything else. It's just not worth it sometimes, especially with the kind of stuff that I write. I write like kind of the middle grade type of stuff if I'm working on something myself. It is what it is. But yeah. So, going on from where I was talking about. Okay, so the tooth can grant wishes, the sorcerer finds out when he keeps that tooth from that ghost dog. And of course the ghost dog was a ghost dog at that time as well. Now the thing is, one day the villagers hear screaming at the top of the hill, the house that the sorcerer was given by the town village, whatever. They go up there, they find him torn to pieces. Mauled. That's pretty interesting. And they assume the dog did it. And apparently the tooth, I assume, went missing after that. And then Jonathan Chiller somehow got his hands on it, and now it's in the Jonathan Chiller store. So anyway, one thing that he tells the two main leads is that this tooth has to stay dry. If it does not, it will affect the wishes and stuff, so you have to be very careful about that. The interesting part here is that for whatever reason, as excited as Andy and Marnie were to get this and see if it actually worked, they pick up the tooth that's free for whatever reason. It's explained later on, kind of like in the epilogue of the book. The tooth is free, but the main the main villain, Jonathan Chiller, also gives them a little horror, like a little toy, you know? It looks like one of the horrors in HorrorLand, one of the mascots. And he tells them to take a little horror home. I thought that was a pretty cool line. I know it's in one of the other books. I think it was in Slappy New Year as well. But I really like that. I think it's pretty cool. And he takes the little toy horror home. Doesn't really have too much involvement in the story, but it's there. And he takes the tooth home. And for whatever reason, thinking that this thing might actually grant wishes, the main character and his cousin Marnie don't use it. Ever. So like summertime was at the end of the summertime. Their summer vacation was at the end of the summer vacation of that time when they went to HorrorLand. And like the school year starts up and it's like 2 or 3 weeks later, I believe, or like a month later, something like that. They're in the midst of the school year now. Marnie comes over to Andy's house and is like, hey, did you use the tooth yet? Just out of nowhere. I'm like, why would you not be using this on the way home from HorrorLand? You have like a 6-hour drive or an 8-hour drive. Why would you not be using that yet? Didn't make any sense. Anyway, not something really worth nitpick. You know, we all know how kids are. They get something on their mind, they get a toy from the store, they want to open it in the car. All of us were like that when we were kids. So, magical tooth that may or may not grant wishes because an adult told you so, especially an elderly adult, you're probably going to go with it, especially when he looks like Ben Franklin. So, I guess, whatever. So, they never use it for like weeks and weeks and weeks. And then Marnie tells them they try to use it, they grant a few wishes with this tooth. The thing that Jonathan Chiller told them, though, it's not like the monkey's paw situation, and that's what I was really thankful with this book. It probably sounded to you like it was probably going to be a monkey's paw story. It is not. It's not one of those things where the tooth can go wrong and you wish for $1 million, but it makes all of your neighbors poor. It's nothing like that. Nothing like that at all. Every wish will just magically come true for no reason. If you wish for a magical jacket from JCPenney, it ain't going to put them in debt and inventory issues, apparently. They're just going to magically give it to you. Or somebody else who's wearing that Prada jacket or whatever is just magically going to give it to you. Very interesting stuff. I had a good time with the book. Marnie, I can't stand. Marnie's in the book the whole time, pretty much, the cousin. And that's really all my complaint is just Marnie. Everything else I really enjoyed. I wish there's a little bit more of a scare factor to this. There's really not. It's kind of like in between a humor aspect and kind of like a why I'm afraid of bees, like this is a tense situation, but it's not scary. I don't mind that. I enjoy that when we get Goosebumps books like that. This is one of those ones that a lot of people aren't going to love as much as I do, but I really dug it. I think it has a lot of fun to it. I wouldn't say I loved it, per se, either. I just had a really good time. I just want entertainment, and again, I've had such a busy schedule the last couple of weeks. I haven't really been able to sit down and burn through this book like I really wanted to, honestly, especially this past weekend. I really wish that I could have had more time to do that and to sit down and just enjoy the book thoroughly, in depth. I'm glad this morning I got to finish it at least and get a review up and stuff too. But I had a blast with this. I thought it was a really solid book. I don't know how everybody's going to receive this book. I've had a couple of people tell me they couldn't wait for me to read this. They thought it was a really solid book already, but I've not seen a whole lot of love out there. I think it's because of the cover too. This is one of those great examples of a book that deserves more of a Tim Jacobus style cover, that's more an eerie cover than something like this. One of the details I want to tell you too, the hound in here, the ghost dog hound, whatever, is called the Blue Curlew Hound. And one of the things that Andy starts having a situation with is at nighttime, after they use the tooth too much, he starts to hear howling, excuse me, my southern got in the way. He starts to hear howling outside of his window at nighttime. And he doesn't know if it's the dog from the urban legend or what. That's kind of interesting. I thought that was kind of cool stuff. Again, not scary, but just interesting. And I like that. That's all that really matters to me. I really dug this book. I think it was one of the best out of the HorrorLand era. I've had a lot of problem with these books just because a lot of them feel kind of rushed. For once, out of many, many, many Goosebumps books in the HorrorLand era, I've realized Goosebumps does better when it has 120 to 130 pages for one consistent story. I stand by that. I always will. And this is a great example of that. If this book was like 110 pages long, or even a 100-page long story, it would have been so rushed it could not have worked. It would not have worked, in my opinion. To start off the second arc of the Goosebumps era, or Goosebumps HorrorLand story, or storyline, or whatever, to be the first book immediately after Streets of Panic Park, I'm impressed immediately and immensely with how good this was. This is a really solid, really fun, really enjoyable read. I was surprised to see it start off in HorrorLand. I think Slappy New Year also did that as well. I could be wrong, but I think it was. Again, that book takes place after this book, much later on, like 4 or 5 books down the road. It's kind of interesting, too. Now that I finished this one, I only have about 4 HorrorLand books left, so I might reasonably get these done within summertime, or before summertime. I'm not really sure. I'm trying to see if I can go ahead and get these done before July. Let me try that again. My southern got in the way again. And trying to keep my voice low is not helping either. Anyway, Goosebumps HorrorLand number 13, When the Ghost Dog Howls. I really enjoyed this. I was very surprised. I was very impressed with it, even. I didn't expect to like this as much as I did. And, yeah, I really recommend it if you haven't read it before. It's a really solid read. It's a good read. I enjoyed this. I'd be surprised if more people didn't check this out after my review and enjoy it. Again, this is one of the ones that you do not have to read the HorrorLand series in order at this point, starting in the second arc with this book. You don't have to read these books in order from this point on. You can kind of read them scattered around. So if you just want to pick this book up based on my recommendation, you can do that. You don't have to read these in order because none of them really tie together too much. Apparently each of these books' endings for like the last epilogue chapter tie into the final book at the very end, The House of Jonathan Chiller, or Chiller House, or whatever it's called. But they're not like tied in together where you have to read this before you read Slappy New Year. It's not like that. You can read these individually, and that's good. I'm excited about that now. But, you know, it is what it is. Anyway, what are your thoughts on When the Ghost Dog Howls? Did you love this book? Did you hate it? What did you think about it? I'd love to hear what you guys have to say about this one, because it kind of impressed me that it was as good as it was, especially because we have a previous Ghost Dog type of book, from what I understand. Maybe I don't know because I haven't read it yet and had spoilers and stuff. I don't know. But we had a previous, in the classic era of Goosebumps, from the original series from the 90s, a ghost dog type of book called The Barking Ghost. Love this cover even more. Can't wait to read this. This is going to be the next book I read and review here on the channel, just because I've told people a couple of times I'm going to pick up this book immediately around the time that I read Ghost Dog Howls, because they're kind of similar in the premise from the topic of the title, you know? So that's what I'm going to do. Barking Ghost is going to be the next review that I do. When it comes to When the Ghost Dog Howls, I'm going to rate this on probably a 4 out of 5 stars, dude. I had a really good time with this. This is really close to being a 5. And it's not because of Marnie. It's just because I don't think it hits that 5 out of 5. I kind of think there's a little bit of a, not an identity crisis, but there's not really a big focus on whether this should be more of a humorous book or more of a scary book or whatever, but there's not really much of both. It's just kind of a good read, just a really fun read of Goosebumps. It's more about the adventure than anything else, than the humor or the scares, which you don't see that a whole lot. Usually Stein leans one way or the other with his writing. But yeah, I had a good time with this. Check it out. Check it out, guys. I really think that a lot of people out there will dig this more than they think. Again, I've been kind of put off because of the cover a little bit, but I'm glad I went ahead and picked it up. It was really solid, really fun read. I had a good time. A really good time, actually. So, anyway, what are your thoughts? Put them down below. Thank you for watching. Oh, by the way, even the ending of this, a lot of the HorrorLand books have had really rough endings, not because of the HorrorLand segment, but because of the rushed storytelling in the first 100 pages. This book does not. This book actually has a really solid, satisfying final chapter before the epilogue. The conclusion build-up is really nice. I really enjoyed all of it. I think it really works. So, props to Stein, dude. He really hit a ballpark home run with this, whatever you want to call it. Good read. Really good read. What did you guys think about it? Put your thoughts and comments down below once again. Let me know. I'm sorry for having to keep my voice so low. I'm trying to figure out something to do with the recording where I don't have to do this, but it's probably all for the best right now to have decent lighting and a decent setting to record in. Anyway, what are your thoughts? Put them down below. Thank you for watching. God bless you. Goodbye.